Welcome to our deep dive into Educated by Tara Westover. It's going to be fascinating to explore this one, especially since it was your pick. What first drew you to Tara's story?
It really throws you into a world so different from most of us, you know? I mean, Tara's upbringing, her family, a survivalist Mormon family in rural Idaho, just wow.
Yeah, reading about their distrust of public schools, avoiding hospitals, and all that end-of-days prep, it's like another reality.
Mhm.
What did you make of their worldview?
It's easy to label it extreme, but it's more interesting to see how those beliefs, how they played out, like in their daily lives, the distrust of the government, the outside influences. It wasn't just talk, it was everything, their healthcare, education, everything.
Right, you read about stockpiling, but living with that constant feeling of doom, something else. Public schools, they're tools of the Illuminati. Hospitals are dangerous. Wild. Any of those details stick out to you?
The birth certificate thing, that got me. She didn't have one until she was 9. And even then, the date was wrong. That's how cut off they were. Not just different beliefs, but rejecting the stuff, we take for granted.
Totally. Even a birth certificate. It's like this link to a world her family just pushed away.
Yeah.
Did you connect with Tara at all? I mean, given how unique her upbringing was.
It's fascinating. Her life was so different, but it's still family, belonging, finding your place. We've all felt that.
Good point. We focus on like the big stuff, but it's really a human story, right?
Yeah.
Family, finding your path.
And speaking of family, her mother, right, skilled herbalist, midwife, but also so devoted to her husband, to his sometimes extreme views.
Yeah, you're always balancing her knowledge and his rigid views. Did you feel for her, or were her choices frustrating at times?
Interesting how she took to some of his ideas, like the midwifery, but pushed back on others. Remember the muscle testing? Became this point of tension, right? For Tara, it was her mom relying on these alternative methods, even when, well, regular medicine might have been better.
Oh, for sure. The alternative versus conventional thing, it was everywhere. And that one practice, it's like a mini version of that, that bigger conflict between the world she grew up in and the world, well, she was starting to see.
Right. And it's key that Tara wasn't totally shut off. Her grandmother, lived in town, had a more normal life.
The hand washing, I loved that. Just washing your hands after the toilet. That was a conflict between Tara and her grandma.
Oh.
Tells you a lot.
It's like these small things become so big because of how different their worlds were.
So true. When did you start seeing Tara, like, actively questioning things, wanting something more?
Early on, I think. Even with all the isolation, the strictness, remember the music and theater stuff? That's a turning point, I think.
Yeah. The arts were like a door to this whole other world, right?
Yeah.
Did that early exposure, the music, performing, do you think that really shaped her desire to learn, to find herself?
Definitely. Definitely. It wasn't just singing or being on stage. It was new ideas, emotions, stories. She started to question the limits, the limits of her life. And if her father was right.
And her voice teacher, she's like this surprise mentor, right?
Yeah.
Encouraging education, like
Yeah.
planting a seed. Were you rooting for Tara, hoping she'd break free?
Oh, yeah. And her brother, Tyler, he left the mountain, went to college. He was like proof that there was another way.
Like a beacon, right? Showing education was possible. And he didn't just show her, he helped her with books and stuff, opening her world.
Right. He brought home a Broadway CD. It sounds small, but for Tara, it was huge. A whole new world of music, stories. She wanted more, beyond Buck's pick.
It's crazy how these little moments can change everything. Education comes from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
What about education in Tara's story in general? I mean, with her father being so against formal schooling.
For Tara, it wasn't just learning. It was freedom. Breaking free, finding her voice, and her path to education, very, very unconventional.
Imagine trying to get ready for college, never even being in high school. That's what Tara did. Homeschooling from her mom and studying on her own. How hard was that for her, do you think?
So hard, so hard. But her will to learn, no resources, no support, it's inspiring, And her education, not typical, even for homeschooling. Her mom, she stopped trying to teach Tara and Luke to read. Her father said reading was enough. That's all you need.
Like giving in, accepting their limits, their education would always be different, not as good.
But Tara, she didn't accept that. She read everything, taught herself math, grammar, took the ACT. Think about that.
Just signing up for that test, knowing how much she had to catch up on. It's amazing. Belief in yourself, never giving up. You can overcome anything. and getting that BYU scholarship, that was huge.
A launch pad, taking her into this world she'd only seen in books or heard about from her brother. Did you feel it, that sense of like, she did it?
Absolutely. It felt like winning not just for Tara, but for anyone who dreams bigger than what they're given.
It's like this big moment, the scholarship, but it's also this huge contrast going from education is like evil to being at BYU, Mormon tradition everywhere. What'd you think of that shift, listener?
It really shows how complicated the Mormon world is.
Yeah.
Tara, she thought her family, they had it right, the truest form of Mormonism. But at BYU, it's all these different beliefs, practices, like a whole new side of her faith.
Yeah, and not just the religion part, it's culture too. Being isolated didn't prepare her for college life. Remember, she thought Europe was a country. And the essay thing.
Oh yeah, remember that. She didn't get it. It shows how much she had to learn, like a whole new language, academics, and just how to be there.
Makes you wonder, listener, did you feel for her, all that culture shock? Or was it like, wow, she sees things we take for granted, but in a totally different way?
I felt both, really. You can see how it would be overwhelming. But she's an outsider, right? So she sees things that maybe we miss. Makes you think.
And all this is going on while she's dealing with Sean's abuse. How did she even function? College and all that emotional stuff. Listener, did that part hit you hard?
It did. It's awful reading about what he did to her. Physically, emotionally. Makes you wonder, how could anyone go through that? Especially when, asking for help outside the family. That's betrayal.
It makes you think about abuse, how hard it is to get help when you're in a closed system. Family loyalty, not trusting anyone outside. It made it almost impossible for her to speak up.
It's true. Escaping abuse, it's not simple. Especially when it's tied up with beliefs, with family. Makes you see how strong Tara was. She not only survived it, but she thrived academically. Going to Cambridge, wow.
Right. BYU to Cambridge, that's another big jump. Cambridge, even more intense, intellectually, all those scholars making her think, question everything.
It's like each step in her education, it matched her own growth.
Yeah.
At BYU, it was the basics, right? Her faith had to be in that world. But Cambridge, it's deeper, not just her upbringing, but the whole system,
Like, growing intellectually freed her emotionally, too. At Cambridge, she wasn't just, learning facts. She was thinking, analyzing, questioning. Remember the civil rights lecture? She thought the date was wrong, a typo.
Yeah, that scene is perfect. It shows what she didn't know, how her upbringing, it shaped her view of history. Whole parts of history just missing.
And it's not just facts, it's how you see the world. Tara's view, it came from her upbringing. But at college, it clashed with reality. It made her see the limits of what she knew and the biases, the stories she always believed.
Like seeing the world for the first time, seeing how complex it is, the injustice. Listener, did you ever have that moment where everything shifts?
Yeah.
Maybe from learning or just life,
And this new awareness, it wasn't just school stuff. It was her family, too. Her father, his paranoia, being unstable. It all looked different after she learned about Ruby Ridge.
Ruby Ridge, it's key to understanding her family. She could finally, understand her father, his actions, beliefs. It's like she was putting a puzzle together. His extremist views, her childhood, and this big event. It all connected.
The similarities between her dad and what happened at Ruby Ridge, they're so clear. It showed Tara that his beliefs, even though they seemed, extreme, they fit into this bigger thing, anti-government distrust. Her family, they weren't alone. It's part of a bigger story.
It makes you think even the most out there beliefs, they come from somewhere. Look deeper, and there's a context, a history. Listener, did it change how you thought about rural communities or anti-government groups?
But it's important to remember, knowing why her father believed what he did, it didn't make what Tara went through any less real. The abuse, Sean, her parents not stopping it, or just doing nothing. She still had to deal with that.
That's so important. We can see how history, society shaped her father, but it doesn't excuse what happened. The abuse, the scars, it was real.
Yeah, and it's that struggle, wanting someone to admit it, to take responsibility, that finally leads to that break with her family. It's tough to read those parts. She tries to tell them the truth, and they deny it. They blame her. Awful.
It's heartbreaking. You feel her pain, how desperate she is to be heard, but they don't support her. They don't believe her. It's gaslighting, manipulation. And she's already been through so much.
It just shows how messed up psychological abuse is. It makes you doubt your own mind. It's amazing how strong she was to finally trust herself and tell her story.
And she had to leave her family to do it. It makes sense, but it's got to be so hard. You understand why she did it, but you can feel the loss, cutting off your family. What do you think, listener, about her choice?
And that's when she starts the hardest part, I think, rebuilding her life, figuring out who she is without them.
Wow, think about everything she's been through at this point. I mean, unimaginable, right? Questioning everything, and then that decision, leaving her family. Listener, what struck you about her rebuilding her life?
Even then, all that loss, uncertainty, she keeps going with her education. It's like comfort, Yeah. Cambridge, then Harvard, ideas, learning, it's her safe place.
Yeah, it's her anchor. She even says Cambridge is like magical, everything shines. But she's still got all this insecurity, not belonging. Remember the roofer among scholars. Did that hit home for you, listener?
No, totally. It doesn't matter, what your background is. We all feel that sometimes, like we're faking it, not good enough.
It's true, right? What's going on inside, it doesn't always match, what we achieve. And for Tara, it's worse because of her past, her family. She's carrying all that while she's doing amazing things.
And all that gaslighting, manipulation, it sticks with you. She starts doubting her own memories. That kind of abuse, it can really mess you up.
Tough to read those parts. She's questioning herself if she's going crazy. Just wants someone to believe her. It shows you how sneaky mental abuse is. It can destroy you.
It's pretty amazing that she found the strength to trust herself again, to tell her story and reconnecting with her siblings, Tyler and Audrey. That helped. They left the mountain too,
Right. They get it, right? They'd been through it too. So she finally feels seen, understood, something she didn't get from her parents. It's how she starts to heal, to put her past together. The trauma's real, but she's strong. She made her own choices.
It shows how important it is to have people who are there for you when you don't even trust yourself.
And it wasn't just them, right? She had mentors, friends who challenged her, made her see what she could do. Professor Steinberg at Cambridge. What about him, listener? What do you remember?
He was big for her education, saw her talent, made her think harder, write better. He believed in her, even when she didn't.
He saw it, the stuff she didn't even see in herself. Amazing how one person can change everything. And her own hard work, it all leads to, well, some amazing things.
Scholarships, a PhD from Cambridge, then Harvard. It's what education can do, right? Not just learning, but finding yourself, becoming stronger.
It really is. Tara shows us education can set you free. You can break free from your past and build a future you never thought possible. But it's not just about, degrees and all that. It's deeper.
Yeah, it's about who you are, deciding that for yourself, taking back your story.
And it's not over when the book ends. Remember that scene? Her and her father at Harvard? Big moment. What'd you think, listener?
The truth comes out, It's everything she's gone through, understanding herself and her family. She tells him about Sean, about the abuse. It's not a happy ending with them making up, but it's a turning point.
It's hard to read, but it's also her saying, I'm done. She's not going to let her past or her family control her anymore.
She had to leave them to protect herself, but there's still hope. She reconnects with some of her other family, the ones her parents pushed away. Remember her Aunt Angie?
Yeah, that's a beautiful part. Tara's building her own family now.
Yeah.
One that's about love, acceptance, being yourself. Not just following blindly or beliefs. It shows how strong people are,
Yeah.
You can find love, belong, even when you least expect it.
Tara's story, it's like a reminder. We can all decide who we are, question what we believe, break free from limits, and be brave enough to find the truth, even if it means making hard choices, maybe losing something.
It really makes you think, and it gives you hope. It's about education, family, and how strong people can be. Thanks for exploring Educated with me. I'm curious, what are you walking away with from our deep dive today?
The thing that sticks with me is that, our past, it doesn't have to be our future. We can grow, we can change. And Tara's story, it's one of a kind, but it's also about things we all go through, right? Finding yourself, never giving up, the truth.
That's a great way to put it. Educated is one of those books that stays with you. It makes you think about what you believe, face the hard stuff, and in the end, own your story.